The passengers of a crashed plane are stranded in a vast desert with no water and minimal chances of survival. Somewhere deep in the Mongolian desert, work is being done to find oil. Soon, it turns out that there is no black gold here, and the oil company closes one of its wells, firing all its personnel. The head of the work crew, Callie Johnson, protests the shutdown, but her boss, Ian, and Frank ignore her outrage. Moreover, upon her return to Beijing, she faces termination for giving the wrong coordinates and wasting valuable company resources on a search for non-existent oil deposits. The team winds down their hardware and boards the plane. In the last minutes before departure, a weird-looking guy named Elliot shows up at the well site, whom the captain also agrees to pick up from the desert. Frank and his co-pilot, AJ, take the plane into the sky. The passengers chat lightheartedly among themselves, sharing pictures of their loved ones who are waiting for them to return home. Suddenly, a huge sandstorm sweeps through the desert, and AJ anxiously awaits his partner's orders. Frank has no intention of wasting time. The captain gives the order to gain altitude to fly over the storm. The passengers are startled by the sudden jolt, but AJ assures them that everything is under control. Nevertheless, the frightened Elliot bursts into the cockpit and tells them that the plane is too overloaded to fly over the sandstorm. However, the overconfident captain ignores his warnings and rudely tells the passenger to get lost. As a result, Frank fails to calculate his own abilities and the capabilities of the aircraft. When they encounter the storm, the engines begin to fail and shut down, and the pilots completely lose control of the plane. AJ hits the hull during a turn. The tail of the plane breaks off as it collides with a cliff and part of the cargo, along with the worker who flies overboard at blazing speed and crashes onto the cliffs. They crash in the middle of the Mongolian desert, causing the plane to be severely damaged and most of its components to shatter on impact. The crew members and most of the passengers manage to survive the crash. Frank informs the workers that their radio is busted and communication with the outside world has been lost. However, he reassures them that they will be missed soon. Meanwhile, the sandstorm completely covers the flying machine. The crew humbly waits for it to subside so they can try to escape. Ian tries to call someone on the phone, which causes John to laugh. The boss, irritated, blames the boy for the plane crash and says he jinxed them with his ritual. The storm subsides, and the team makes their way outside. In honor of the 2 employees who were thrown from the plane, makeshift crosses are placed in the desert. After recovering from the initial shock, the passengers take an inventory. According to Frank's calculations, they should have enough water supplies for a month if they consume half a liter per person per day and conserve strength and energy. The bad news, however, is that the plane went off course during the crash, and the nearest settlement is several hundred kilometers away. A sporty worker named Jeremy says he can get there on foot, but he doesn't know about the peculiarities of the Gobi Desert. The man does not give up and says he will walk during the chill of the night. The dunes are constantly on the move, so he would just walk in circles and eventually get lost amidst the sands. As night falls, a desert storm breaks out. Young John can't sleep because of guilt. He goes outside to relieve himself, and a strong wind instantly carries him to an unknown destination. At this point, the boy paces from one direction to the next in a panic, trying to find his way back to the plane, but the treacherous desert leaves him there forever. In the morning, the team wakes up to find John missing. Finding no sign of him, they are horrified to realize that he has been swept away by the desert. His partner, Alex, wants to go in search of his friend, but Callie and Frank prevent him from the ruinous venture. This event makes the passengers fully aware of the dangerous situation they find themselves in. Meanwhile, the surviving passengers begin to speculate that no one is coming for them. Ian is confident that the corporation will rescue them, but Callie reminds him that they fired dozens of people without regret after learning that there is no oil in the desert. Panic ensues among the crew. Ian and another passenger plan to leave, taking a canister of water with them. The other survivors attack them, trying to stop them. This leads to the canister bursting and the life-giving liquid spilling out onto the sand. Suddenly, Elliot starts whistling, drawing attention to himself. He tells the team that he knows how to get out of the desert. All this time, he has been carefully studying the construction of the plane and has concluded that it can be rebuilt. He suggests that the assembled team construct a new aircraft from salvaged spare parts. The crew is skeptical of his proposal, thinking that it is not feasible. But Elliot reveals a truth about himself that causes the passengers to change their minds. The passengers get their hopes up, but Frank convinces them that they won't survive working under the scorching sun and with minimal provisions. He tells everyone to do nothing and conserve their strength until the rescuers arrive. Not everyone agrees to this plan, and at dawn, it becomes known that James has decided to leave. Kelly plans to go after him, not wanting to lose another colleague. The captain stops her and reluctantly sets out to find the missing man, wandering for long hours across the vast desert. Eventually, he reaches a quarry where he discovers the wreckage of their plane. Among it lies a mutilated man's body, next to which Frank finds bullet casings. James suddenly appears behind the captain and tells him that the victim is one of the passengers who fell out of the plane. He must have had an expensive watch on his hand, which James lost to him in a poker game. Frank asks him to return to the group and promises to start building the plane. Frank announces that they are going to build the plane and asks Elliot to develop a new design. At night, the crew gets to work, lighting fires in barrels to illuminate everything around them. Everyone is full of energy and successfully manages the difficult work of taking the plane apart. By morning, everyone feels very tired and notices that they have drunk twice as much water. Construction work is done only at night to avoid the heat and to save water. On one such night, a spark from a fire accidentally hits a barrel of gasoline, and a powerful explosion occurs. This leaves almost no fuel, and Frank informs the team that they will have to work during the day, using more water. The group is not thrilled with the idea, but in daylight, their productivity improves and construction speeds up. Elliot gives the group a daunting task: to join the two parts of the airplane's wing. He entrusts this to Sammy, who used to work as a regular cook. Sammy climbs inside the wing to attach the desired part. During the process, an accident occurs, and the other part of the wing comes off its fasteners and falls right on top of Sammy. The team freezes in horror, thinking the cook has passed away. However, within seconds, Sammy appears before them, smiling, having successfully accomplished his task. Over the course of the construction, the team becomes even more united and finds reason to rejoice even in the harsh desert conditions. During a workday, the team names the new plane Phoenix, as a symbol of rebirth from the ashes. Later, AJ urgently summons everyone and reports that someone is secretly stealing water. He's been taking measurements of the supplies for days and notices that they're running out too fast. Elliot admits that he is the one drinking the water. He considers his actions justified, as he works at night while the others are sleeping soundly. Frank attacks the designer, but Elliot reminds him that they need his help to finish the plane and get out of the desert. After a hard day's work, Kelly leaves the crew to get some rest. Suddenly, she hears suspicious noises and discovers a human camp nearby. Kelly immediately informs the team, and Frank and his two workers decide to go on a reconnaissance mission. After investigating, they discover that some smugglers have set up camp. The men decide to negotiate with them to ask for help. Chief Ian, AJ, and Alex head toward the camp, while Frank is backing them up from above with a gun. Ian, in a broken foreign dialect, tries to explain to the smugglers the purpose of their arrival, but he doesn't understand a word they answer. Meanwhile, James follows Frank and screams as he notices his watch on the wrist of one of the smugglers. The negotiating bandit pulls out his gun and fires. Alex covers his partner with his body. Enraged, Frank instantly fires on the smugglers, but one of them manages to escape. The wounded Alex is brought to camp, but Kelly tearfully tells him that he can no longer be helped. Soon, the man passes away, and the team buries him next to the others. While inspecting the enemy camp, one of the surviving smugglers is brought to the plane, and the team begins to argue about what to do with him next. Elliot comes out to the group and solves their problem by eliminating the bandit with a shot to the head. A new argument erupts between him and the captain. The designer accuses Frank of making a series of bad decisions and reminds him that it was his actions that caused the plane to crash. Now, the scuffle with the smugglers has caused them to lose one man and disrupt their work schedule. Frank can't stand it and silences his opponent by force. Work on the plane freezes, and Elliot tells the crew that he has lost interest in it because of their disrespectful treatment of him. He forces everyone present to admit that he is the leader of the group. After this, the work resumes and Elliot hands out instructions to all the men. The entire time, the smugglers are watching them from afar, waiting for the crew to run out of steam and let their guard down. After a while, he announces to those present that the plane is completely ready. The captain wants to get a map of the area from Elliot's backpack, but accidentally stumbles upon a brochure of the company for which he works. It turns out that the man has never actually built real airplanes, but has only been designing small aircraft models. This news leads the team to panic because they have spent so many resources to build a bogus design. However, Elliot desperately tries to convince everyone that large planes are built on the same principle and that their Phoenix can fly. His words do not convince the furious workers, and everyone lashes out at the man with accusations. Exhausted, Ian picks up a revolver and intends to shoot the lying designer. Because of him, their food and water supplies are running low, and now there is no chance of salvation. Frank manages to stop his boss at the last moment and takes the weapon out of his hands. Suddenly, a violent sandstorm breaks out in the desert, interrupting the crew's quarrel. The wind begins to lift the hull of the plane, clearly demonstrating to those around that it can take off. The crew hides from the storm in the fuselage, miraculously surviving the inclement weather. Once outside, they find the plane half buried under the sand and lose hope again. However, Frank gives an inspirational speech and tells the crew to dig the plane out. They have come too far and must not give up before returning home. The motivated workers hook ropes to the plane and pull it out of the sand on their shoulders. Before departing, Frank and Elliot finally shake hands. The crew wishes the captain good luck and stands still in anticipation. He only has 5 rounds to manually start the engine. The first few attempts fail, and the propeller stops spinning immediately after starting. Then, Frank decides to use one of the bullets to clean the plane's engine. Elliot warns him that they only have 2 rounds left, but this time, the captain realizes the risks. The passengers decide once again to trust him. He starts the engine and gives it fuel to burn. Flames burst from the propeller several times, but in the end, the plan works. On his 5th attempt, Frank manages to get the plane started, which gets the crew excited. The survivors climb aboard, and the plane begins to move. But then, the armed smugglers appear on the horizon. On horseback, they rush straight at the group and damage the steering wheel with a shot. Frank loses control and asks Elliot to put the steering wheel back in place. The designer, dodging bullets, crawls across the plane and puts the rudder back in its proper position. The moment of truth arrives. The plane moves at full speed toward a cliff, after which it plummets down. The smugglers stop, thinking that their plunder is about to crash. However, contrary to their expectations, the plane begins to gain altitude and soars into the sky against the beautiful sunset. The team rejoices and congratulates each other. This is how the incredible rescue tale ends, and all the Phoenix's passengers successfully return home to their loving families. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Follow for more videos.